Good morning.
早安。
Yeah, God is good.
神是良善的神。
Yeah. Did you guys enjoy your vacation this week?
你们这个礼拜都有享受你们的假期吗？
No. The Taiwanese people know how to do vacation better than any other people I know.
台湾人最懂怎么样度假了。
It's true.
真的
It's true. You guys are good.
你们真的
You
很
guys
知道
are
怎么
good at
度
this.
假。
Even I went on vacation this week.
伊娃跟我这礼拜也去度假。
We don't do that very often, but we went for 3 days, 2 nights.
我们没有常常这样做，但这个礼拜我们去度了3天2夜的假期。
And where were we?
我们去哪里？
Suao.
去苏澳。
And listen, guys, it was great.
很棒。
We stayed at this wonderful hotel, beautiful
我们在
hotel.
这个很棒的、很美的旅馆。
And you know, inside of our room, they had hot springs.
就在我们房间就可以泡汤。
For me, it was a big wow. You guys are used to this. It was.
对我
I
来讲
love
是
this.
第一次，你们应该常常都有这种。
And one other thing,
另外一件事，
in the morning,
早上
they had a great breakfast buffet.
那个早餐是吃到饱，
That's my vacation right there.
这
That's
就
the
是我
best thing
心目中的
ever.
假期。
I can eat unlimited bacon.
我可以一直吃
All the bacon I want.
培根。
I'm going to teach you that word, bacon.
贵哥大家要
It's
教我
a
怎么讲
very
培根。
important word.
这是培根是一个很重要的
We,
字。
even I had a great time.
我
out
跟丽
there.
宝有一个很棒的时间
You。know, last week we started a sermon series on the book of Philippians.
上周我们开始新的一个系列讲腓立比书，
And I shared that the main theme of this letter that Paul wrote was to encourage the believers there that their citizenship was in heaven.
保罗写信的主要目的要鼓励腓立比的教会，他们是属天上的国民。
And that these believers, these precious believers, they should live their lives according to God's kingdom thinking, and not the world's thinking.
他们应当活出神国的思想跟价值观，不是照着世界的思想跟价值观
In
而
fact,
活
you。see this throughout the whole book of Philippians.
你在腓立比书可以一直看到这样子的比较。
Today we're going to be looking at chapter 1.
今天我们要看腓立比书第1章，
Now, in this chapter,
在这一章，
Paul points out 2 big areas in life.
保罗指出生活中的2个重要的部分。
2 areas where kingdom thinking is different from the world's thinking.
那这有2个，就是神国跟世界思想不一样的。
Now, again, this is throughout the whole book of Philippians. Paul is doing this, comparing kingdom thinking with the world's thinking.
保罗一直在腓立比书比较神国跟世界的想法。
He wants the believers in this church to see the difference.
保罗希望腓立比的教会可以明白这2个之间的差异
In。fact, Paul wants everyone in this church to see the difference between the world's thinking and kingdom thinking.
保罗希望腓立比教会能够明白世界的思想跟神国的思想差在哪里。
Now, sometimes, I'll say, just a few times, Paul actually describes the world's thinking.
那有几次保罗有试着描述世界的看法是什
But
么？
most of the time, he doesn't even talk about the world's thinking.
但是大部分的时间他一点都没有提到世界是怎么看的。
What he does is he shows you very clearly, and he elevates kingdom thinking.
反而他比较多的时间是花在把怎么跟腓立比讲说这个天上的想法是怎么样
Because
子。
Paul knows that if we see if we get a clear picture of God's kingdom thinking,
是保罗要腓立比的眼光要看着天上，他们就可以明白神的眼光是什么。
we'll very easily be able to recognize the world's thinking
当我
around
们明
us.
白神国的思想，我们就可以知道世界上的思想是什么。
So in chapter 1, it starts like most of Paul's letters.
那第1章就跟保罗的其他书信一样，
He gave a short greeting to the church there,
他有一个简短的问候，
and then he prayed a short prayer for the believers there.
然后就有一个短祷告为着教会。
And then Paul pointed out
然后保
that good fruit was coming from his imprisonment.
那保罗就提到，他因着他的被囚有结出好的果子。
He's saying good things are coming from this one bad thing.
有一个好事情从这个不好的事情找出来。
And one of the ways Paul saw good fruit is that the gospel was spreading everywhere.
这个是好果子的一个 结果就是福音广传了。
So here is Paul imprisoned. He can't go anywhere.
保罗在监狱里，他哪里都不能去。
But because of his imprisonment, the gospel is spreading everywhere.
然而因着保罗的被囚，福音却广传了。
And it's even spreading among the elite guards that are guarding Paul.
不但福音广传，而且还传到那些看守他的御营前
I
军。
mean, these soldiers are chained to Paul 24 hours a day.
因为这些罗马士兵是24小时跟保罗绑在一起。
Can you imagine?
你可以想象
Can
吗？
you imagine being chained to Paul?
你可以想象说，你如果跟保罗
And
绑在一起，
Paul just keeps preaching the gospel.
然后保罗就一直在讲福音。
And apparently among the soldiers, they're having like a revival because of Paul sharing the gospel.
这些个看守他的罗马士兵当中，就有一个复兴来到，
And so Paul was rejoicing.
所以保罗非常的开心。
And he was believing also that his circumstances,
保罗也相信他的处境，
that not only would they result in good fruit,
不但是有了一个好的果子，
but that they would also lead to his deliverance.
也甚至会让他将来终是会得着释放。
Now, these are the things that Paul is saying in the first part of Philippians.
所以在腓立比书的前面，保罗是讲这些事情，
And then he said something a little bit strange.
然后他说了一些奇怪的事。
He expressed this hope that he would not be ashamed of his future behavior.
然后他就说，他有一个盼望，让他将来不会因着这些事情感到羞愧，
He knew that he was going to face some tough times.
因为他知道他将来会面对一些困难的
And he
时候。
wanted to make sure that his life glorified Jesus no matter what bad circumstances he was in.
他要说，他不管他的境况如何的糟，他都希望他能够荣耀耶稣。
See, so he hoped that Jesus would be exalted in his body, in his actions, whether by life or by death.
所以保罗切慕盼望他的不管是生跟死，他的行为可以让耶稣被荣耀。
And this brings us up to the section that I want us to look at
那
today.
这个就会接着就会讲到我今天要跟大家分享的这一
We're going
段。
to look at 6 verses.
我们要看6个经文，
And but let's read it first.
那我们一起
Verses
来念。
21 to 26.
腓立比书1章21到26节，1、2、3，请。因我活着就是基督，我死了就有益处。但我在肉身活着，若成就我功夫的果子，我就不知道该挑选什么。我正在两难之间，情愿离世与基督同在，因为这是好的无比的。然而我在肉身活着，为你们更是要紧的。我既然这样深信，就知道人要住在世间，且与你们众人同住，使你们在所信的道上又长进又喜乐，叫你们在基督耶稣里的欢乐，因我再到你们那里去，就越发加增。
Yeah. Don't you love verse 21?
你怎么能不爱第21节？
For me to live is Christ and to die is gain.
我活着就是基督，我死了就有益处。
Listen, in this section you just read,
在这个书信这个段落，
Paul challenges the world's view in two important areas,
保罗挑战世界2个重要的看法：
life and death.
生与死。
Now, chances are very good
这个我猜想，
that some of you here today are under the world's influence in one or both of these two areas.
我们当中还有许多人是有在世界被世界影响着生或者生跟死的想
So I
法。
want us to talk about these two areas today a little bit.
所以今天我想要跟大家分享这个生跟死。
And I want us to start by trying to figure out how the world thinks about these two areas of life and death.
我想要先从世界是怎么看待死这个事情来开
So
始，
let's allow the Holy Spirit to wake us up inside
让圣灵把我们叫醒，
so we can get a clear view of how the world thinks about these areas.
然后我们就可以明白世界是怎么样子看待死。
We see what Paul thinks about these areas.
我们已经看到保罗怎么看死，
Now, what does the world think about these areas?
那世界是怎么样看死呢？
Let's start with this.
我们来从这里开始，
How would the world finish this sentence?
世界会怎么样回答接下来这个填空题？
To live is blank.
我活着就是
Are you giving Paul's answer? What are you giving?
你们把保罗的答案放上去
You
了吗
guys are great. I love it. You're
太棒
already
了。
thinking about
我们已
this.
经知道要怎么样子想
I
了。
think I'm going to sit down for a few minutes to let you guys.
我可以坐下来休息，不用讲了。
Because you're right. I love
因为
that
你
you're
的答案是
thinking
对的
about this.
我知道你们想得很好。
Yeah, but let me explain this. To live is blank.
那这个填空题呢
In？other words, what is the meaning of life to the person in the world? To the world, what is their meaning in life?
那对世界而言，那这个活着就是什么呢？
What's their main pursuit in life?
在世界是怎么看的呢？生活着最重要的目的是什
What
么？
is the thing that is the center of everything that they do, everything they want in life?
在他们生活当中想要达到的、想要做的到底是什么？
That's what we're doing when we're filling this out. To live is blank.
所以这个世界的想法是这个填空题是这
Now,
样填的。
you guys have great answers.
你们的答案非常超出我的意
But I
外。
have my answers too.
那我也写了一些
And
答
so
案。
I'm gonna see if we maybe agree with this a little bit.
然后想说，看你会不会同意我所
I'm
写
just
的。
I'm just listing 10 things that I think that the world maybe could put in that blank right there.
那我就是来想了一下，写的10个答
But you
案，
continue to think the way that you're thinking.
然后你也可以比较一下你心里面的想法。
To live is family.
我活世界说，我活着就是家庭，
So many people are living for their family,
所以很多人是为了家庭而活，
for their parents,
为了父母，
for their husband or wife.
或者是为了先生，或者是为了太太。
So many people, the center of their life are their children.
然后有很多人的生活的重心是孩
The most
子，
important thing in life is their
他
grandchildren.
们生活中的重心是孙子孙女。
I've met you grandparents. I know this.
我有看过这些那个阿公阿嬷，我知道。
You guys think of grandchildren are the best thing in the world.
阿公阿嬷觉得说，孙子孙女是在世界上最
So
重要、最棒的。
The world would say to live is family.
所以世界可能会说，活着就是家庭。
They might also say
他们也可能会说，
to live is money.
活着就是金钱，
Lots and lots of money.
越多越好。
To live is possessions
我活着就是有拥有，
and comfort.
就是舒适。
To live is pleasure.
我活着就是宴乐，
To live is good friends.
我活着就是朋友，
To live is adventure.
我活着是为了冒险，
It's health.
我活着为了健
It's
康，
good health.
好的健康。
It's success.
我活着就是成
To
功，
live is recognition.
我活着就是认
To
同，
where everybody knows who you are.
大家都知道你是谁。
These are some of the ways that the world views life.
这就是世界怎么样子看待生活
What，they think the main meaning of life are some of these things.
这些生命的意义是什么？
Now, the kingdom answer is much more simple than that.
那神国的答案是简单多了。
According to Paul,
保罗表示，
to live is Christ.
活着就是基督，
That's so simple.
太简单了。
Jesus is the center of our lives.
因为基督是我们生活的中心，
This is what this means.
这就是这个意思。
Jesus is our purpose. He's our main purpose in life.
它是我们生活的目的，
Following him is our main purpose in life.
跟随耶稣是我们生命的目的，
He is our main passion in life.
它是我们的热情，
He is our number one priority in life.
它是我们生命中的首位。
He is our number one pursuit. We pursue him
我们
first of all.
在生命中就是要第一个，就是要来追求他。
Jesus is the king over every area of our life.
基督就是我们生命中各个层面的王。
That's what Paul means when he says to live is Christ.
所以保罗的意思就是活着就是基
It's not all
督
these other things.
不是这些其他的
It's，Jesus.
是基督。
Now, do you see the difference between the world's way of thinking about life and kingdom way of thinking about life?
那你现在看得出来世界的看法跟神国的看法对于生活这件事情呢？
When you look at these things,
你刚才这样子看比较一
which
下之后，
which way does your heart lean?
那你的心是比较偏向哪一边的说法
Are
呢？
you leaning more towards your grandchildren or to Jesus?
你活着是多为了你的孙子孙女，还是为着基督？
That's tough.
这个很难的问题哦，
I know it's tough.
我知道很难。
Let's go to the next area.
那我们来看第二个部分，
How do you think that the world would finish this sentence?
那世界会怎么来回答接下来这个填空题呢？
To die is blank.
我死了就
You guys. How does the world view death?
那世界怎么看待死亡
I
的？
got 10 more possibilities here.
我也写了10个可能的答案，
This will go really fast.
会很快。
To die is scary.
世界说我死了就有害
For
怕，
many people in the world, to die is very, very
对
scary.
世界人来讲，死了就害怕，
It's sad.
是有忧伤。
To die is hopeless.
我死了就绝望，
It's disturbing.
我死了有困扰，
It's unthinkable.
我死了是无法想象，
To die is unfair.
我死了不公平，
It's grievous.
我死了会伤心，
It's painful.
我死了会痛苦，
It's confusing.
我死了是很困惑，
It's dreadful.
我死了就可怕。
Listen, this is the way the world views their own death.
这是世界怎么样子看待他们自己的死亡？
They view death as an enormous loss.
死亡对他们来讲是一个重大的损失，
They view their own death as an enormous loss.
他们对自己的死亡是一个重大的损失。
Again, the kingdom answer is very simple.
那神国的看法还是很简单。
According to Paul,
保罗表示，
to die is gain.
我死了就有益处。
Yeah. If we are believers in Jesus,
如果我们是信耶稣的，
to die means that we get to depart and be with Christ.
死是代表我们可以离世与基督同在。
This is what Paul says in verse 23.
所以保罗在23节所说的
He
就是这
says,
个。
I get to depart and be with Christ
他说：“我可以离世与基督同在，
forever.
永远同在。
This is not a huge loss for the believer. ”
对信徒而言，这不是一个损
For the
失；
Christian, this is a huge, death is a huge gain.
对基督徒而言，死亡是一个极大的得着。
It's my wife.
这是我太太。
Yeah, yes.
Yes，
Listen, do you see the difference between the world's way of thinking about death and God's kingdom way of thinking about death?
你现在又有看到这个神国的看法跟世界的看法对死的看法是怎样的不同吗？
There is a huge difference.
这是一个很大的差别。
Which way does your heart lean
那你的心比较靠向哪一
when you
边？
think about your own death?
当你看你自己的死，
Do you think of any of those things? Do you respond in any of the ways that we talked about the world responding?
你想到你的死是跟世界的回应是一样的吗？
It's important that we're able to see these things.
我们很重要，能够明白我们自己所想
It's
的。
important we're able to see what's going on in our heart about these two very important
我
areas.
们需要知道我们自己在心里面是怎么样子看待生跟死。
Now, these two areas are too big for me to preach on in one sermon.
那1个小时一个信息要讲生跟死太难了。
So today I want to focus on how we as believers should face our own death.
那我今天要特别看基督徒怎么看待自己的死。
Now, I hope I don't come across as too much like I'm bragging or anything.
我希望接下来讲的不是要让你觉得我在这个夸耀炫耀什么，
But I may be one of the most qualified people in this room to speak about death.
但我相信我是这个房间最有资格讲死的人。
And that's because I've lived under a death sentence from the doctors for almost 14 years.
因为我已经在医生的死亡宣告下活了14年了。
Now, most of you guys know this story.
那你们大多数人都应该都知道，
Please still continue to act interested, even though you've heard about it before.
所以你已经听过很多次，但是拜托你今天听的时候，还是要表现出很有兴趣、想听的样子。
That's very good. That's
对
perfect.
对，
That's
就是要
perfect.
这样子的表现。谢谢。
In 2007,
在2007
I
年，
just turned 50 years old,
我就是50岁的那一
and
年，
I went for my first ever complete body checkup.
我第一次去做身体健康检查。
You know, like you go to the big hospitals and they do this huge health checkup.
我就去了那个很大的医院，然后去做完整的身
Now,
体健康检
I'd
查。
never done this
我
before.
之前从来没有做过，
And so this was the first time.
对我来讲第一次。
It's not that I felt bad in my body.
不是我身体有不舒服，
You know, it was like I didn't have any pain.
我也没有痛苦，
In fact, I was feeling very healthy.
我觉得我很健康。
I was really healthy for a 50-year-old.
我对50岁而言呢是很健康的。
But one of the precious sisters in our church gave this to me as a birthday present.
那可是教会有一个宝贵的姐妹，就把这个送给我当生
So
日礼物。
Eva and I, we went to our first health checkup.
所以伊娃跟我就去做了人生的第一次健康检查。
And how many of you guys have been to something like that?
你们有没有做过全身健康检查？
Anybody?
有吗？
Anybody? Almost all of you.
我们
Okay.
都有啊。
So you understand what it looks like.
所以你会知道这个去做这个
You
健
know,
康检查
you。go there and they give you special clothes to wear.
你去那里要给你换衣服，
And they did not have American size.
那他们没有这个大号的，
So it was short. Everything was short and really tight.
对我这个美国人也都太小
And
太
then
紧
they
了。
had someone lead me to all these different places over a few hours to get all these different tests.
好几个小时就我被人带到一间一间去做检查，
And near the end of this exam,
在这个检查的最后，
I went into a room and I saw a real doctor there.
然后我终于在一个房间看到一个真正的医生，
All the other people were just giving me tests.
那其他的人都只是检
But
查，
here's a doctor.
最后终于看到医
And
生。
he wanted to give me a test that only the men will get.
那他为我做的是男人才需要做的 检
And I
查，
will not explain this test to you.
我就不会解释
But
不
it
解
was
释
the
了。
first test that I've had like this.
但是我是第一次这样做。
And I remember after this test,
那这个检查做完了以后，
I started thinking, I think something is wrong.
那我就开始觉得好像我的身体有什么问题啊。
Because he was talking to his nurse, telling her to write things down. But the way he was telling her, I thought, uh-oh, something's wrong.
因为医生帮我做完检查，他就交代护士要写下一些东西。他讲的样子让我觉得不太对劲。
So we went home and waited for our results to come in like a week later.
那我们就回家了，等一个礼拜等报告。
And we get this nice little booklet that has all the results of every test.
那就有一个健康检查报告一整本，
And we're looking through our books.
然后我们就开始看报告。
And Eva gets perfect scores
然后这个
always
伊娃
on
她的
this.
就是100分呐，
Right? I mean, me, I've got red everywhere.
然后我的都是红字。
But there was one place where it was also in red, which means there's a problem.
那有一个地方是红字，
And they had circled it.
然后他还用笔圈
And
起
I
来
think，they put exclamation marks next to it.
然后还有在解释，
And they said, see your doctor.
然后特别是写说要我去赶快去看医生。
I looked at the score and I knew that it had to do with cancer.
那我看了那个抽血的报告，我知道说这个是跟癌症有关
It was
系。
not for sure, but I thought, well, this is pointing towards
我
cancer.
不敢100%确定，但是我觉得应该是癌症，
So we went to the doctor.
所以我们就赶快去看医生。
And the doctor says, well, listen, you need to go get 2 more tests.
那医生跟我说你还要再做2项测
So
试，
I got an MRI,
所以我去做了磁核共振，
and I also got a biopsy,
然后我还做了组织切片，
which was a lot of fun.
对，非常有趣。
And a week later,
那再过了1个礼拜，
Eva and I sat in the doctor's office to get the results of my tests.
所以我跟伊娃回去看医生，要看这2项的报告。
And listen, the doctor was really nervous speaking to us.
那医生要讲的时候，让我觉得他非常
You
紧
could
张。
see he didn't want to tell us what was wrong.
我可以感觉得出来，他不想要告诉我到底有什么毛
We were
病。
very gentle with him,
我们都对他非常的温
and
柔。
finally he told us what was going on.
那最后医生终于愿意告诉我们
He
了，
said that I had incurable stage 4 cancer.
他就跟我说，我得了这个第4期的没办法医治的癌症。
And they would have some treatments that they could give me,
他说他们可以试着治疗
but，they could not cure it.
但是没办法医好
These
我。
treatments would just slow the cancer down.
这些治疗可以让这个癌症比较迟缓。
And he said that I could expect to live between 3 and 5 years.
然后他跟我说，我大概只能够再活3到4年。
And then Eva and I got up and we left his office.
那伊娃跟我就离开了。
And I remember Eva and I were standing in the middle of the hospital lobby.
那我还记得，我跟伊娃就站在医院的大厅，
We just heard this news.
我们刚听完医生的报告，
I just gotten this death sentence.
这个死亡的宣告。
And you know how hospital lobbies are.
那你知道那个医院的大厅的
People everywhere, just walking everywhere.
人走来走去，
And Eva and I are standing there. We're face to face.
那我跟伊娃面对面站在大
And
厅
we're
里，
processing what the doctor had just told me.
我们在讨论说，到底刚刚医生到底讲了什么，
And we prayed.
然后我们就祷告。
And I remember while we were praying, it's just like the grace of God was on us.
当我们祷告的时候，神的恩典就
And
临
this
到我们，
peace came over us
有
as
这
we
个
were praying.
平安在我们祷告的时候来
And
到。
even though I had just received a death sentence from the doctor,
就在我刚被医生宣告我就要死了的时候，
there was no fear,
我没有恐惧，
there was no anger,
我也没有
there
生
was
气，
no hopeless grief.
也没有绝望，
There's just this amazing peace.
就是很特别的平安。
Now, I've told this story often.
我常常这样讲这个故事，
I've written this story
我也把它
often.
写下来。
And sometimes I wonder, am I exaggerating this?
有时候我就觉得说，我是不是写的太夸张了一点？
It makes for a good story if I say, when the peace of God came down.
如果我写说哇，神的平安降下，这不是很
But
棒
you
吗？
know, when we went in to see the doctor,
当我们进去看医生听报告，
I turned my cell phone on to record what the doctor said.
我把这个手机打开，有录音要录医生说的话，
And I forgot to turn it off.
那我忘了把它关掉。
So as Eva and I are sitting there talking
所以当我跟伊娃在大厅的时候，
and praying,
在祷告的时候，
we're recording everything.
所以这些也都一起录下来
And
了。
we put the file on our computer. We can go listen to it anytime now.
那我现在就是把它存在我的电脑，我们什么时候都可以听。
I've listened to it a couple of times through the last few years,
我住过去几年也听过，再听过几次，
just to make sure I'm not exaggerating.
要确定我没有讲的太夸张。
But every time I listen to that,
但我每次听这个录音，
you can feel the peace and the hope in our words and in our praying. It's an amazing.
你可以从我们的对话里面可以感觉得到神的平安，这是很神奇的一件事。
Through the last 14 years,
所以过去的14年，
yes, I'm still alive.
对我还活着。
We've heard many more hopeless doctor reports.
我们还继续听了很多一个医生这些绝望的报告。
We have been to the hospital so many times.
我们继续持续的去到医院。
And every time we'd go to the hospital,
每一次我们去到医院，
every time we'd get more tests done on me,
每一次他们对我做检查，
or every time that we would hear that the cancer had spread to other parts of my body,
每一次他们都跟我说我的癌症又扩散到哪里
or
去了
every。time I would get new treatments,
然后每次给我试新的治疗
every
疗程。
time I've had blood taken,
我每次抽我的血，
I've had a million times I've had my blood taken.
我应该抽了千万次的血了。
Every time
每一次
I've done these
我
things,
做这些事情的时候，
it was a reminder of the death sentence that was hanging over my life.
都提醒我这个医生所说的死亡宣
It's
告。
just natural that you're going to remember why you're at the doctor's.
因为你做这些事情的时候，你就知道说，哦，为什么你要去到医院做这
And
些？
every time I remembered, every time that I heard that reminder,
那每次我被这样提醒的时候，
there was no fear,
都没有恐
there
惧，
was no hopelessness,
也没有绝望，
there was no crushing grief.
也没有这些很痛苦的这些忧伤，
There was only peace,
只有平安
there，was only hope,
只有盼望，
there was only rest.
只有安息。
Sometimes there was pain,
有时候有痛苦了，
sometimes there was discomfort,
有时候不舒服，
but in my heart,
但在我的心里
and I
面，
know in Eva's heart as well,
我知道在意外的心里
there's
也
just
是一
this
样，
tremendous lack of fear or worry.
就是一点的恐惧或者担忧都没有。
Listen, sometimes I hear Christians respond when they are diagnosed with a incurable disease.
有时候我看到基督徒对那些他们被宣告得了不可医不好的病的时候，
They respond with overwhelming grief.
他们就回应着，他们也是非常的痛苦难
Listen,
过。
it used to be we didn't hear all the responses from everybody who got diagnosed with that.
以前我们没有这个机会可以知道每一个基督徒是怎么样子反应
But
的。
now we have Facebook,
但是现在我们有脸书，
right? Now we have Line.
我们还有 Line，
So everybody they just talk. They just talk.
所以我们可以看到很多人可以分
So
享他们的想
I've
法。
heard some where the Christians are responding. One of them has gotten diagnosed with a terminal illness, cancer or something.
所以就常常可以看到脸书有人基督徒分享他们得了这个不可医的病，
And they just respond with this overwhelming grief.
然后就回应说他们是这么样子的
You
痛苦，
can feel it in them. They just feel this huge sense of loss.
然后就感觉到他们有一个这个极大的
Oh,
损
I'm
失，
going to miss out on so much in life.
在他们的字里行间就知道说啊，我要失去很多生活的机会。
They're going to miss their children.
他们想他们的
They're
孩
going to
子，
miss their grandchildren.
他们会没有办法跟孙子孙女一起，
They're going to miss watching them grow up and get married.
没有办法看到孩子孙子长大成人，
They're going to miss watching them have babies.
没有办法看到孩子生孩子。
And you can feel this anguish as they express how much they're going to miss in this life.
你可以感受到他们是为这些要失去的东西是如何的伤心难过。
It's like, and you can just feel the tears coming from the other side as they're expressing how awful this is for their life.
你可以从脸书上可以看得到那个眼泪从那个荧幕上跑出来。
I have compassion for the people that are responding, the Christians that are responding that way.
我对这些基督徒，我也是有他们很多的同情。
But
但是
I don't believe this should be the Christian's normal reaction to their own death.
我不认为这应该是基督徒对他们自己的死应该有的正常反应。
I'm not making this up.
我没有夸张。
It should be normal for us as citizens of heaven to react like Paul did.
对我们这些天上的国民而言，我们对自己的死应该跟保罗一样。
Paul constantly faced the possibility of his own death.
保罗是时常要面对死亡。
When he was writing this letter to the Philippians,
当他跟腓立比写这个书信的时
he
候，
was imprisoned.
他就在监狱里。
We know it was a pretty easy imprisonment.
因为我知道它是一个虽然是一个很简单的监狱，
You need to understand that at any day, Caesar could call him to see him.
尽管是如此，他是有可能凯撒有可能明天就叫他要去凯撒那里
And，Paul would have gone to Caesar,
然后保罗就要去到凯撒
and
面前，
Caesar could have found him guilty
那凯撒就要判他有罪，
and had him killed.
如果是有罪，他就要处死。
So Paul was in prison for 2 years there.
所以保罗在那个时候是2
And
年关在监
every
狱，
day he faced the possibility that this would be his last day.
所以每一天都有可能是他的最后一天。
And how did he respond?
那对这个情况，他是如何的回应的
What
呢
is？the kingdom way of responding to death?
神国对死亡是如何的看呢？
To die is gain.
活着就有，死了就有益处。
Some people think, oh, well, Paul was depressed.
有些人觉得说保罗是非常的忧郁，
He wanted to die.
保罗想要死，
He had a tough life.
因为他过得太苦了。
He was almost suicidal.
保罗有自杀倾向。
Don't take me now. I want to die now. I want to die now.
主让我走吧，
But
让我回去吧。
that's not what Paul was like at all.
但是保罗不是这样子
In。fact, we can see in the next few verses
你接着看接下来的
that
几节，
Paul wanted to live.
你可以看得出来，保罗还是想要继续活
He
着的。
says, to die is gain,
他说死了就有益处，
but I have a lot of reasons I want to live.
但是我还有很多的原因，我要在这
And
个世
he
界
even
上。
says, I expect I'm going to live.
他说我会期待我会继续活下
Because
去，
I want to visit you.
因为我要来
God
看望你
knows
们。
that I want to encourage you.
神知道我想要去拜访你
I
们，
have things I want to
我
do.
有很多事还要做，
I have cities I want to go to and plant churches
我
there.
有很多的城市还没有去开拓教会。
Paul was excited about life,
保罗对生命是很大的盼望，
but he understood death.
但他还是明白死亡。
He understood and believed that death was, as a believer, death was not a loss for him.
但是他知道死对他来讲不是一个损失，
It was a huge gain.
死对他来讲是这个极大的得
In
着。
fact, when you hear Paul talk about this in verse 23,
你可以看到保罗在23节
you
所写
can
的，
see how excited he was
你看他对
about death.
对于死是如何的兴奋。
He said it's far better to depart and be with Jesus.
他说离世跟与基督同在是更好的，
Now, the Greek word there for far better,
但这个更好在这个希腊原文里面
it's a big word.
是一个很重要的字，
It's a more powerful word.
是一个很有能力的
It
字。
means it's far, 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 far better for me to depart and be with Christ.
他说跟离世与基督同在是太好
You
了。
can feel the excitement that Paul had to depart, to die, and to be with Jesus.
你可以从保罗所用的那个字可以看得出来，他是很期待跟基督同在。
Now, listen, I need to explain something.
那我要解释一下，
When someone that you love dies,
当你所爱的人死了，
I understand that you will grieve.
我可以明白你会忧伤的。
We all grieve when someone that we love dies.
我们所爱的人死了，我们当然是会忧伤的，
And that's because there's real loss in our lives.
因为对我们而言，他们的死是一个损失。
When you're the survivor and you have a friend or a family member die,
当你活下来，但是你的家人、朋友死了，
you will feel loss
你会觉得是损失，
because they are now gone from your life,
因为他们
in this life.
在你的生活当中不会再出现了，
Isn't that true?
是不是呢？
And it's okay to grieve.
所以那个忧伤难过是应
It's
该的。
natural to grieve the loss of these others.
这些我们生命当中失去的人，为他们忧伤难过是正常的。
In fact, Paul encourages us to grieve.
保罗也鼓励我们要去为这些事忧
But he
伤，
says you need to grieve with hope.
但你要带着盼望来忧伤。
So I hope you understand, when we're talking about losing someone that we love, yes, it's okay to grieve, to feel loss in that.
所以我要你们明白说，当我们谈论的是别人的死，我们应该是为这些是我们的损失感到忧伤。
But that's not what I'm talking about
但
this
是我
morning.
今天早上讲的不是我们别人的死，
I'm talking about us as believers facing our own deaths.
我谈的是基督徒面临自己的死。
When we, as believers, face our own deaths, when we are looking to our own deaths, we know we have a death sentence over us.
就是基督徒面对自己的死，知道自己要死的时候应该的回应。
There is no loss.
我们的死不是一个损失，
There is no loss.
没有损失，
There's only gain.
只有益处。
Now, this is what I also believe as I face the possibility of my own death.
当我面对我自己的死的时候，我也是这样想的。
I believe this strongly.
我非常的相信，
To die is gain.
死了就有益处。
I happen to agree with Paul.
我必须要同意保罗所的
Now
看
listen,
法。
I still love life.
我还是想要活着，
I still have things I want to do.
我还有很多事要做，
I still have books I want to write.
我有很多书要写。
Listen, I am still trusting God for a powerful healing miracle in my body.
我还是相信神可以在我身上行大能医治我，
And this is a little hard for some people to understand.
但这对有些人很难明白。
I am believing God to heal me.
我相信神可以医治我，
But at the same time,
但是在同一个时间，
I am at peace with the possibility of my own death.
我对我自己可能会死掉是会有平安的。
We need both of these things.
我们需要两个都要，
Do you understand?
你可以明白吗？
We need to trust God for healing.
我们必须要相信神可以医治我们，
But we need to be at peace with the idea of death.
但是我们也可以对自己的死可以有平安。
Whether I live or whether I die, that I would glorify God.
不管是生或者死，愿基督得荣耀。
Now, it's not that I have courage.
不是我很有勇气，
I don't have a lot of
我
courage.
没有很有勇气。
You can ask Eva.
你问伊娃就知道，
I don't do these big courageous things.
我都不会去做这些冒险挑战的事。
It's not that I have courage.
不是我很有勇气，
It's that I have faith.
是我相信。
This is the most important part of the sermon.
这是这个早上的信息最重要的地方。
It's not that I have courage.
不是我有勇气，
It's that I have faith.
是因为我有信心，
Simple faith.
简单的信心。
What does that mean?
这什么意思呢
It？means that I've come to the place where I actually believe the promises that God has given to us about death.
这是我相信神关于我们死的这些应许，我真的能够相信。
When you leave today, we're going to hand out some of those promises from God.
那今天我们离开的时候，我会请招待同工给你们这个关于神的对于死亡的应许。
But right now, we're going to read 3 of these promises, and they're from Jesus.
但我们现在要从圣经里面来读关于死
So let's
耶稣的应许是
Let's
什
read
么？
all of 3 of these promises.
我们一起来念。我实实在在的告诉你们，那听我话又信差我来者的，就有永生，不至于定罪，是已经出死入死了。约翰福音复活在我，生命也在我。信我的人，虽然死了，也必复活。凡活着信我的人，必永远不死。你信这话吗？我的羊听我的声音，我也认识他们，他们也跟着我。我又赐给他们永生，他们永不灭亡，谁也不能从我手里把他们夺去。
Do you believe these promises?
你相信耶稣的这些应许吗？
Man, listen, when Jesus died on the cross and he rose from the grave,
当耶稣钉死在十字架上，从坟墓复活，
he put an end to death for all who would believe in him.
他为了那些相信他的人，把死给封闭起来了。
When Jesus died on the cross,
当耶稣死在十字架，
he defeated death.
他就战胜了死
He
亡。
opened the door for us to gain eternal life.
他给那些相信的人，可以有一道门，可以进入永生。
Do you believe that?
你相信这个应许吗？
Yeah. Listen, remember this.
要记得，
You don't need courage to face death.
你面对死亡不需要勇气，
What you need is simple faith in God's promises.
你所需要的就是一点信心，能够相信神的应许。
I hope you can understand this.
我希望你可以明白
Because。some people try to think, I'll be brave when the doctor says I'm going to die.
有些人说啊，但是医生告诉我要死的时候，我要有勇气。
It's not about courage.
这跟勇气没有关
It's
系，
about faith.
这是跟你的信心有关。
Listen, for the believer,
对着信徒而言，
death is a brief moment in time.
死不过是永恒当中的一瞬间，
It happens in an instant.
就这样子就结束了。
I'm helping Rick on this. There you go. All right. So every time Rick tries to do this, you help him, okay?
对，所以当约给这样做的时候，你要帮他这样子
Okay?
才有声音。
For the believer, death is an instant in time.
对信徒而言，死亡不过是一瞬间的时间。
That's right. Listen, I don't even like to use the word death.
我甚至不想要用死亡这
I
个
know the
字，
Bible even uses the word death,
因为圣经也没有这样
but the
说。
Bible understands the word death.
但是把圣经明白死亡，
For the believer,
为了信徒，
death is an immediate change, transformation from life to life.
但基督徒而言，死亡不过是从这个生命移转到另外一个生命。
The world's thinking is that it's a change from life to death.
对世界而言，就是死亡就是从生进到死。
But the Bible is very clear.
但圣经讲得非常清楚，
When we die, it's a transformation that happens instantly
对基督徒而言，死亡是从生命进入到另一个生命，
from life to life.
从生命进到另一个生命。
Where's the death?
死在哪里？
Where is the death?
死在哪里？
There is no death.
没有死。
For the believer, there is no death.
对信徒而言，没有死。
We go from life on earth in this frail body.
我们再从世界上这个软弱的身体，
In an instant, we go to life eternal in heaven with Jesus.
进到在天上有永恒的生命与基督同在。
I like that.
我很喜欢这个。
In heaven, there will be no more sickness,
在天堂没有疾病，
no more pain,
没有痛苦，
no more loss,
没有损失，
no more loneliness,
没有孤单
no
孤
more
单，
sorrow,
没有忧伤，
no more sin,
没有罪，
no more
没有
temptation,
试探，
no more worry,
没有担心，
no more fear.
没有忧虑。
Everything the way that the world has been destroyed now, it will not be in heaven. It is not in heaven.
在这些世界上，我们所担心的这一切，在天上都不会有。
When we die, we will be face to face with Jesus.
在我们死的时候，我们可以到天上跟基督面对
We
面，
will be immersed in his awesome glory
我们可以沉浸在他永远的荣耀里，
forever,
到永远，
forever.
到永永远远，
There will be no loss.
没有损失。
You're not going to sit in heaven and say, man, I sure miss pizza.
你不会在天堂想说啊，我好想念披萨，
No,
不会的，
there will be no loss.
没有损失。
There's a famous pastor and evangelist named D.L. Moody.
有一个很有名的牧师穆迪，
I tell this quote. There's a famous quote that he says that I often tell when I speak at funerals.
那我要讲一个常常在这个告别礼拜常常用他的一句话。
Moody was nearing his own death.
那穆迪快要死的时候，
And here's what he said.
他是这样说的
He：said, someday you'll read in the newspaper that D.L. Moody is dead.
有一天你会在报纸上看到报纸写说穆迪死了，
Don't you believe a word of it.
绝对不要相信，
Because at that moment I shall be more alive than I am right now.
因为那个时候我会比现在还更加生龙活虎的活着。
I like that.
我很喜欢这个，
That's faith.
这是信心。
I want to suggest that you guys speak this quote to one another.
我要鼓励你们要用这样子这个句话对彼此来说，
Maybe to a family member.
对着家人来说，
Maybe to a good friend.
对一个好朋友来说，
Sometime this week you speak this quote to them.
在这个接下来这个礼拜，你用这句话来对他们讲，
But don't use D.L. Moody's name.
不要用穆迪的名字就对
Put
了，
your name in this quote.
把你的名字放进去。
If you're a believer, speak this to one another.
如果你是基督徒，要用这样彼此说，
Here's how you do this.
你可以这样讲。
Someday you will read in the newspaper.
有一天你会在报纸上看到、读到，
No, I can't say that.
而且不可以这样说，
Let's do it again.
来重来。
Someday you will read on Facebook
有一天你会在脸书上
or
看到，
online
或者在 LINE 上看到，
that Greg Dennington is dead.
说这个 Greg Dennington 死了。
Don't you believe a word of it.
绝对不要相信。
At that moment, I shall be more alive than I am right
因为
now.
那个时候 ，Greg Denton 会比现在还更加生龙活虎的活着。
You guys, as you speak that to one another, I believe your faith will be started. It will be started on this.
我相信，当你这样子用这个跟基督徒彼此说的鼓励的时候，你的信心就会增长起来。
Yeah, we're almost finished.
好，我们快要结束了，
I just have one more little thing to do.
但还有一件事情要做。
Because I wanted to encourage you on how you can have this kind of faith.
所以我想要鼓励你要怎样子可以得到这样子的信心。
I told you before, it's not about courage.
我已经跟你说，这跟勇气没关
It's
系，
about faith.
这是跟信
So
心
how do
有
you
关
get。this kind of faith?
你怎样才能够得到这样的
There
信
are
心
a
呢？
lot of good ways that you can get this kind of
哦，你
faith.
可以有很多的方法
But
得
I
到
just。want to talk about one just really quickly.
我要很快的讲一件事，
You've already heard about
因为
this.
你已经听过了，
I talked about it already
今
today.
天已经说过
There's
了。
a big thing that can help you in believing that to die is gain.
你可以这样子做，你就可以相信死了就有益处。
You know what that big key is?
你知道那个关键在哪里吗？
To live is Christ.
活着就是基督。
If you understand and believe this,
如果你可以相信你明白，活着就是基督，
it will help you grow a faith that you can believe to die is gain.
你就有这个信心可以去接受死了就有益处。
This is a little deep.
这有一点深，
So I want you to go at lunchtime and think about this.
所以我想要你用午餐的时间思想一下。
If your life is not Christ,
如果你的生命不是基督，
and listen, a lot of Christians' lives are still not fully Christ.
真的很多的基督徒，他的生命还不是都完全是基
If
督
your
的。
life is centered on anything other than Jesus,
如果你的生活的重心不是基督，
then you can't possibly have the kind of faith, or you can't have the faith in this truth that to die is gain.
那你就很难有这样子的信心去相信说死了会有益处。
If Jesus is not king over all areas of your life,
如果基督不是在你生命的各个层面是
you
王
are，shutting the door to his work in your life.
你就会把他关在很多他可以工作的层
And I
面方
tell
面。
you a big work Jesus wants to do in your life.
那我相信神要在你生命中做很大的工
He
作，
wants to grow your faith.
他要增长你的信心。
But if you're closing doors, you're saying, yeah, I'm not sure about Jesus' way here. I'll do my own thing.
但是如果你在每一个地方都跟耶稣关门，
You're closing the doors to what Jesus wants to do in faith.
那你就没有办法让基督在那个方面帮你的信心有增长。
But if you live with Jesus as the center of your life,
但如果你活着是基督，生活基督是你生活的中心。
if to live as Christ is stamped on your heart,
如果活着就是基督印在你的心
then
上，
the doors are all open.
那你的门是为着耶稣打开
And，Jesus will come and he will build the faith that you need so that you can believe to die is gain.
那耶稣就可以进来建造你的信心，让你可以有信心相信死了就有益处。
You understand?
你可以明白吗？
If you have a stamp on your heart to live as Christ,
如果你在心上印着说活着
he's
就是基督
everything，to me. He's
基督
everything
就是
to
我的
me.
一切。
He's the focus of my life. He's the priority, the top priority of my life.
基督是我生命的重心，他是我生命的首
He
位，
is the king of my life.
他是我生命的王。
If to live as Christ is stamped on your heart,
如果活着是基督印在你的心
then
上，
Jesus is going to come to you
所以耶稣会到你这里，
and he's going to stamp to die is gain on your heart.
他会在你的心上印上说死了就有益处。
Amen?
Amen.
You understand?
明白吗？
This is huge.
这是很重要、很重大的。
There is freedom in this room today.
现在在这里有自由，
Listen, the devil wants to keep us in fear, in slavery to the fear of death.
那魔鬼希望把我们捆锁在这个没有盼望、在死亡的恐惧里面。
Jesus died to set you free.
但是耶稣死了，是要让我们得自由。
And he wants to set you free from the fear of death.
神今天要让你从死亡的恐惧当中得到释放。
Amen?
阿门。
Let's stand up.
请我们起立。